Hey everyone, Brian here. I got a question for you. What was your most fun D&D character? Part 2. For a quick, single-session game between my friends and I made my most infamous character. He's a warlock. He owns a pizza restaurant chain. His main motivation is to get the deed to Pizza Hut. His name is Papa John. Good luck with that. He sounds like Mario. He looks like Danny DeVito. It became canon somewhere in the session that he is constantly covered in marinara sauce scented hand sanitizer. We unlovingly refer to him as a slimy marinara man. He is the absolute worst. He's chaotic evil, and he hated the characters we were playing with. My friends were playing as their characters from the campaign I DM. Instead of solving puzzles, he found ways to bypass them completely. He climbed the wall over a large crevasse in the ground and left my friend's character in the puzzle room behind him. At the end of that mission, he actually did get the deed to Pizza Hut. He actually showed up in my campaign since. Canonically, he also owns Domino's. He's creating a monopoly. Her Royal Highness Princess Anastasia Eleonora Sophia Celeste of Arenwald. It was my first Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition character, and I got in about level 6 in an existing group. There was need for a mage, so I rolled one and leveled up to level 6. As I picked spells, I noticed that there was always a snow or ice theme to the spells if possible. With a nice deck of mostly snow/ice spell cards representing my tome, I went on to the background. My eyes were drawn to the noble background, and it suddenly hit me. I had rolled an Elsa! So I ran with it. Princess Anastasia was currently first in line to the throne of Arenwald, should her sister Queen Maria die childless. And Anastasia had no intention of becoming queen. That would just mean a lot of politics and boring stuff, and not fun stuff like magic and raiding ancient tombs for knowledge. The sad thing was that Queen Maria was slightly paranoid and had this fixed idea that Anastasia's traveling around Arenwald and the rest of the Sword Coast was actually preparations for a coup. So not only was Princess Anastasia adventuring with a small entourage not nearly befitting her status, but you just can't take an army of royal guards while adventuring, especially if it has to happen in secret. She was also scheming to get her sister married to the most fertile and handsome prince or count or duke, if that proved impossible, she could find, so that her sister could get knocked up and Princess Anastasia knocked down at least one peg in the line of succession. A slight complication or two then appeared at the horizon. First, she was a princess, and then the rest of the group was not nobility of any kind, and just could not understand that things had to be done in a certain way. For instance, that long morning routine to get presentable. They just could not get that. They were used to just get up and eat something, not getting a corset tied, petticoats and overcoats, getting the very long hair brushed and braided, and so on. Or the evening routine to go to bed. You just can't sleep on the ground like a peasant, and certainly not in the clothes you wear by day. Second, she had an uncanny likeness to a certain love interest of Count Strahd, and that brought them to his shadow dimension, where he tried his best to capture and seduce her. So, Princess Anastasia slapped him hard, for 1 HP of damage, and then proceeded to scold him that he, a lowly shadow dimension count, had the audacity to try and abduct and seduce her, a princess of Arenwald, that he had no right whatsoever, and that he should kneel before her and beg forgiveness. Yes, she spoke as if every other word was underlined, bold, italic, or any combination thereof, which I instinctively did. Instead, he towered up over her and proclaimed that he was immortal and would share the gift of immortality with his beloved Tatiana, and that he would not take no for an answer. Wrong move. The vampire count lasted 1 round. Third, there was a dragon cult at the Sword Coast that tried to summon the Dragon Queen. That was actually just fun and adventuring by the order of the council. There was just a small issue that Princess Anastasia actually outranked everyone at the council except King Melandrak. On one hand, it meant that the group had influence at the decisions taken at the table. But on the other hand, it meant that the group could not be bossed around just like that. And then there was the matter of her yet unmarried queen sister. And then she turned 18. It was the first time ever I had played a Disney princess as a character in D&D, and it was awesome. That would be Molly Hatchet, my stout halfling monk of the Long Death, with a fighter dip for mariner style to get climb/swim speed, a barb dip for rage, and a rogue dip for expertise in athletics and intimidation. While technically she was a monk, I reskinned her abilities to be a thug. She started the game with the proverbial hatchet/weapon, a crowbar bashing weapon. She also used to jimmy things open, and soon enough picked up a shiv. Piercing. Her background involved being part of the shady side of the tracks and then trying to go straight so that her family would let her move back home to care for her daughter. Molly became pretty formidable at higher levels of monk, especially after she picked up a belt of giant strength. Besides being able to swim, climb, and run like the blazes during a fight, and of course she had mobile feet, she could grab and hammer throw opponents and once redirected a boulder in mid-air to smack a hill giant with it. Rooftop chases were a forte of hers, with her speed and dexterity, and she could fall long distances without reprisal. It was really her personality, though, that made her so fun to play. She was a chaotic neutral trying to turn over a new leaf and be good, but usually sliding right back into her own personal chaos, and I played her like an unholy splice of Roseanne Barr and Tanya Harding. At times, she'd try to be a lady, but usually couldn't keep up the pretense. She was coarse in her jokes, crass in her speech, and would drink anyone 3 times her size under the table, especially when her stout resistance to toxins was supplemented by monk immunity. She was a diplomatic disaster waiting to happen at a moment's notice, and had a habit of picking up pretty things that caught her eye, kind of like a portable hoarder, aka petty thief. She could also be pretty opinionated and outspoken, and was usually dangerous with just a little bit of information. After the party killed a dragon, she recalled hearing a story as a child about how eating a dragon heart could give you magical powers, like understanding other languages. So the party watched mortified as she suddenly took half an hour to cut her way into the dragon's carcass, cut loose its heart, and drag the whole thing back out to carry around on her shoulders for the next few hours while snacking on the raw meat. Another time, she became convinced that one of her dead companions had actually been turned into a rat. So she caught the rat, hoping to find a wizard to turn him back, while meanwhile keeping it in a box in the inn, while often forgetting to feed and water it. At one point, the rat chewed its way out of the box, and she had to recapture him for his own good. It would have been hilarious if she had ever found a wizard who could cast Remove Curse on the rat, and actually have it turn back into a human she didn't recognize. The nuanced part was that Molly was a romantic at heart. She just had no real affinity for it, which made her kind of endearing. The truck driver girl who sometimes imagined herself swept away in pretty dresses on the dance floor. She once swooned in the care of a kind-hearted halfling noble, while the rest of the party was fighting for their lives in an ambush she had inadvertently set up for them. And another time, tried to pretty up her back alley inn room with cheap curtains and some weeds in a vase because, well, she just didn't know how to do better. She's one of those characters who isn't much like me IRL, but who I miss playing dreadfully. So, I got to be honest with you, I'm still playing a character that I'm in love with. His name is Father Avadon, or Avadon. It was a GG reference, and I didn't expect to play him long. He was a cleric that worshipped the flying spaghetti monster. My DM kind of laughed it off and said sure I could. However, this grew into one of the strongest written characters in the world because of how serious I take him. He is currently battling between the idea that the monster might not be real, but he still wonders where he gets his powers from. I've been playing this character on and off for about 4 years, and I've truly been enjoying it. I've got to say, for a joke character, he's no joke anymore. My whole table fucking loves him. My favorite character I ever had was a 3rd edition Druid. I originally made the character because I liked the ability to change into animals. So when my friends and I got our hands on the Call of the Wilds, I think that was the book title, and I found the Shapeshifter Prestige class, I knew I had to play one. The class basically let me change from only becoming a type of medium or large animal into almost any type of creature. Dragons, fae, elementals, undead, you name it, and I knew enough about it I could turn into it. Which was the one stipulation the DM put in for the class. I had to make a knowledge check about the creature before I could turn into it. Unless I had killed one before and studied it, had to keep a sheet for what I had killed. For every 5 points above the base DC of 20, I could be more accurate and use more of their powers. At one point of the campaign, we had to track down the enemy commander and his army. We needed to find a way to prevent him from destroying the town we had made our base in. So I did my role of scout by changing into a bird and trying to find the army. After a week of on and off flying, I found the enemy army and had to figure out how to slow or stop them. I started out by waiting until the commander gathered his generals that night and changing into a fly and literally being a fly on the wall and listening to their plans. The next day, I was again in my finch form, sitting in a tree and began to sing. There was one feat that made this character truly memorable. It allowed me to cast spells while in wild shape or shapeshift, and the spells sounded as if I was in the animal's natural language and movement. So 10 minutes later, and the army, while getting ready to march that day, noticed that the weather changes to stormy weather. They then need to take more time to cover the supplies so the weather doesn't spoil or blow away any of the supplies. And 10 minutes later, lightning begins to strike the enemy camp. This lasts for about 2 minutes before the enemy commander realizes that the only tree in the area is the only thing not getting hit by the lightning, since the lightning was focused on their supplies. He then hears me singing and puts 2 and 2 together. So I get driven away and leave the enemy army alone for a few hours, then I come back and do it again. I proceeded to do this for a few days before changing my tactics. The enemy army had to then cross through a canyon or go around it, which might add a week onto their march. While they went through the canyon, I turned the ground into mud over and over. Then I trapped as many as I could in the mud, then turned it back to stone. With them trapped, I changed from a small bird into a dragon and passed over them using my breath weapon. By the end, I had delayed the enemy army by a month and starved them of most of their supplies, and the DM became paranoid of birds in campaigns, especially when it was my turn to DM. That's really clever, I love that one. Hey everyone, Brian here, checking in after the vid as always. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and to ring that little bell over there to get notified whenever we post a new video or when we go live. And if you'd like to submit a story, you can do so on our subreddit, r/MrRipper, post one on there, and make sure to follow us on Twitch and Twitter. Links are going to be in the description below. Using a help action, come on over and say hi to my YouTube channel, Brian Von VA, where I stream games, make D&D content too, and voice act some lovely memes. As a positive today, I just want to say, anyone who's out there listening in, I want to know what your favorite character was. Something that you really, really liked seeing, but not in D&D, but in a cartoon or in a TV show. A character that you really could harmonize with. Let me know about that because I want to know a little bit about you, the listener. All the love, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.